In the ancient land of Israel, a dramatic story was unfolding, one that would echo through history and inspire generations. It's a story about courage, faith, and divine power, a story that reveals that even the smallest person, when trusting in God, can face and conquer the greatest giants. Today, we delve into that story, a story about a young shepherd boy named David and a towering giant named Goliath. Long ago, the land was torn by war. The armies of Israel and the Philistines faced each other across a shadowed valley, tense and ready for battle. The Israelites, God's chosen people, stood on one hill, their hearts pounding with fear and uncertainty. On the other hill, the Philistines looked fierce and confident, their armor shining in the sun. But among the Philistine warriors, there was one who stood out, a giant named Goliath, a behemoth whose name struck terror into every soldier's heart. He was over 9 feet tall, a colossal figure clad in heavy armor, wielding weapons that seemed to glow with deadly power. Every morning and evening, Goliath would step forward and shout across the valley, mocking the Israelites, taunting them, "Choose a man to fight me. If he defeats me, we will be your slaves. But if I defeat him, then you will serve us." His voice thundered, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. His words were like a curse, a challenge that no one dared to accept. The soldiers looked at him with wide eyes and trembling knees. Fear gripped their hearts so tightly that they couldn't move. They saw in Goliath an invincible monster and believed there was no hope. The giant's size, strength, and mockery seemed to fill the valley with despair. Every day, they cowered and waited for the giant to decide their fate, a fate they believed was sealed. But amid the chaos and fear, there was a young boy named David. A shepherd, small in stature, but enormous in faith. David was tending his sheep in the fields, watching over his flock with tender care. His heart was pure, his trust in God unwavering. He loved God deeply and believed with all his might that the Lord was greater than any giant. One day, David's brothers went off to fight in the army, and David, driven by love and curiosity, decided to bring them some food and see how the battle was going. As he approached the scene, David's eyes widened at the sight of Goliath. He saw the giant's towering form, his armor glinting, his mocking voice echoing across the valley. David felt a surge of indignation. How could this giant mock the armies of the living God? How could no one stand up to him? His heart burned with righteous anger. The fear that had paralyzed the soldiers gripped him not, because he knew that his trust wasn't in soldiers or weapons, but in his God. David looked around and asked, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His words cut through the noise, sharp and clear. The soldiers and elders looked at him with disbelief. "You're just a boy," they said. "Goliath has been a warrior since he was a child. You can't fight him." But David's eyes burned with conviction. "The Lord who rescued me from the lion and the bear," he declared, "will rescue me from this Philistine too." His faith was fierce, unwavering. He knew the battle belonged to the Lord. His confidence was not in his own strength, but in the power of God. When King Saul heard about David's desire to fight Goliath, he was skeptical. "You're just a boy," Saul said. "Goliath has been a soldier since he was young. You cannot face him." But David, undeterred, responded with conviction, "The Lord, who helped me fight off lions and bears, will help me defeat this giant too." Saul hesitated, then looked at David's fiery eyes and nodded reluctantly. He handed him his armor, but David tried it on and quickly realized it was too heavy and unwieldy. Instead, he took only his sling and 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. He knelt in prayer, whispering softly, "God, I trust you. Please help me to do your will." His heart was pounding, fear tried to creep in, but faith was stronger. David stepped forward, single-minded, fearless. Goliath saw him coming and burst into mocking laughter. "Am I a dog," the giant roared, "that you come at me with sticks?" His voice boomed like thunder, a wave of fury and contempt. But David stood his ground and shouted back, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Goliath charged with fury, wielding his spear and armor. The ground trembled beneath him. But David, trusting in the divine power that had carried him through life's dangers, spun his sling with a swift, practiced motion. He aimed at Goliath's forehead, whispered a quick prayer, and released the stone. Time seemed to freeze. The stone soared through the air, guided by faith and divine strength, and struck Goliath right in the forehead. The giant staggered, then toppled backward, falling face down onto the rocky ground with a deafening thud. A silence fell over the battlefield, then erupted into chaos and shouts of victory as the Israelites saw their giant fallen. David's faith had turned the tide. What seemed impossible was now a glorious victory. In that moment, a truth was revealed. Faith in God is the unseen power that can move mountains, conquer giants, and turn despair into hope. David's courage was not his own, it was rooted in his unwavering trust in the Lord. His victory was a testament to the divine power that works through those who believe. This story isn't just about a boy defeating a giant. It's about the divine truth that no obstacle is too big when God is with us. It's about trusting in the divine strength that surpasses human ability. When we face our own giants, fears that threaten to crush us, doubts that paralyze us, challenges that seem insurmountable, we can remember David. We can remember that the battle belongs to the Lord, and that His power is greater than any problem we encounter. Think about the giants you're facing today. Maybe it's a difficult situation at school, a strained relationship, a financial crisis, or a deep-seated fear. Whatever your Goliath is, remember this story. Remember that faith is the unseen power that can turn the impossible into the possible. When you trust in God, you gain strength that goes beyond your own abilities. You become a conqueror, not because of your might, but because of divine empowerment. The story of David and Goliath reminds us that God often uses the small, the weak, the unlikely to accomplish His greatest plans. He calls us to face our giants with unwavering faith, faith that believes in the victory before the battle has even begun. Faith that trusts in the divine promise, with God, all things are possible. So I urge you, as you listen and reflect, to face your own giants with courage. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Believe in His power and His promises. When the fears come roaring like Goliath, stand firm and declare, the battle is the Lord's. Because when you do, you tap into divine power, the divine power that turns the impossible into the glorious, the weak into the strong, the fearful into the victorious. Remember, the greatest victories are born out of the deepest faith. And when you trust God, you are not alone. The divine strength of heaven is with you, empowering you to defeat every giant that stands in your way. Your faith, rooted in the divine, can move mountains. Your trust in God can turn your battles into testimonies of divine victory. This is the story of David and Goliath, a story of faith that conquers giants. It's a story for every one of us, for every challenge, every fear, every obstacle. It's a reminder that with God by our side, we are more than conquerors. That divine power is available to us when we believe, when we trust, when we step out in faith. So go forward today with confidence. Face your giants with courage. Trust in the Lord's strength. Because He is the God of the impossible, and with Him, you will always be victorious.